All right, it's 6:03 and I call this October board order. Let's stand for the pledge and I'm going to read all the silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everyone. Thank you. Congrats.
I think this is yours. Has your name on it. Yeah, you can say white pledge.
Don't be filling it out.
Yeah. $1,000 a week.
All right, the first item on the agenda is for the approval of it. So, everybody had a chance to look at that?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Do we have a first and a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. It's unanimous. Next item, 60-minute. All right, so for the safety moment or minute, November is National Drowsy Driving Prevention Week. I'm saying that quickly. So my safety moment is if you're
Okay.
drowsy, there's actually a website that you can go to that has all kinds of information about how to not fall asleep at the wheel. Cool moment. I got a couple here. So number one, I think most of you were aware, we did send crews to down to Georgia. So they arrived at Cobb REC, which ended up not getting a lot of storm damage. So they quickly shifted them over to Jefferson, which if you know where Jefferson, it's right beside Augusta, Georgia. Jefferson was nearly 100. They nearly had 100% of all their members out at the time finish of the storm. So during the time their power was restored over 24,000 meters, and the crews were gone for about 11 days. So Brian Amrine went, Caleb went, Donnie went, and Paul went. So very good experience, I think, for all of them. Second thing, we did participate Friday, October 11th, and you can actually see Sam's picture up there. Abby, Leslie, Jeannie, Sam, and Bob represented us. We actually cleaned the Sprinza house, again, as part of the community day. And that is it. All right, thank you. Sam, you're next, I guess, with the fiber update. Yep. Next, there you go.
All right, so I believe it was asked to kind of give you guys a schedule of what the fiber project's going to look like here in our, what I'm considering our phase one, with the hopes of BEAD dollars coming to complete out the rest of the territory. So I kind of wanted to list some milestones as we work through this project with our first phase. And Entrust, our company we're working with, they refer to it as DA. And that's a design area is what DA stands for. So if you hear me reference DA, that's what it's so the first part was signing the scope of work, getting the grant for that from Next Level LLC forward. So now we're starting into this phase. We'll be starting looking at sales. We'll be looking at lead generation. So trying to capture anybody that would be interested in signing up and making sure we're captured and have that data available. So when we do get to them, we'll be able to turn them into customers very quickly. And also we're going to start the marketing campaign, and that marketing will be ongoing for, even after the build phase. So that's why we put it as an ongoing. There's no real milestone there. So then we get into the outside plant detailed design. And I tried to include some of the functions of what that includes. We've been working on route planning for the backbone, trying to verify what our feasibility study said for that. The last 2 weeks, we've been doing some ride outs with that, starting the high level design. Then they'll come and do a field collection of our poles. And then they take that field collection and actually do what they call a low level design. And that's the actual design that's going to get implemented and built out. And then we move into the make ready from that design. And they actually give us design prints to go do the build. So then that moves us into the construction phase where we'll get into the make ready execution. And we'll probably start some of the make ready before that just to stay ahead of crews as they build out. But we'll have all of the material selection, we'll have contractor selection. We'll start material procurement and any permitting, because we'll cross the railroad, we'll cross the interstates, we'll have to make sure we get that done. And then actual construction. And with the timeline of early Q2 of starting that construction, wrapping up. So I got the clicker. The next piece that we will kind of talk about is network design, and this is based with our partner with SEI. They'll be responsible for a lot of this, so that's why we left SEI scheduling up there. But they do all the network engineering, the cabinets, turning on the light in the fiber that's been constructed and tested and getting ready to turn up customers. And then we finally get to the design area one, ready to go live and actually drops into the house and start lighting up customers and start bringing in revenue for the fiber business. And we have that slated for early Q3 of 25 of revenue coming in. So that's a very high level, trying to stay out of the weeds. There's a lot of scheduling that goes in with this, but kind of give you the process of and kind of a high level timeline of what we expect to hit as we go through the build. Anybody have any questions over that? It's a lot.
Is there much land easement need since we already have easements for our poles?
So the land easement, that they included that one because they'll need, SEI will need cabinet easement with Hoosier. So it's just working with Hoosier and getting an easement with them. Yeah, everything's probably going to be on our poles. I mean, we'll have to do some underground, but yeah, those easements are already in place.
So this design area one is how big?
So this is the grant area.
Yeah, but how many
homes
is this?
It's around 1,400 that will be passing. The grant covered 500 and some of those, 568, I believe, homes.
Sam, in establishing the dates, or is that an aggressive time frame? Is that a conservative time frame? Is that, I mean, best guess?
It's probably best guess because there's so many contributing factors. I mean, make ready, we don't know exactly what all the make ready is going to be. Getting product, it's, you could be held up by that. You got your electronics. There's lots of steps that could hold up the project. I wouldn't say this is best case scenario. There's definitely buffers built in there. Best case scenario, I would say this would ramp up quite a bit faster.
What's your estimated date on our first member to receive internet the first time? Like, what would be your estimated date for the first person to hook up and go?
So right now, I would say early Q3 of 25. And I would say that's a safe estimate. There's a very good chance we could speed that up if everything falls in line perfect.
It's not that far away.
It is. No, that's what I said. When you start seeing it,
So you're ready to go live. That's a good, I mean, you're being conservative.
Yeah, I would say it's conservative without any major roadblocks.
Thank you.
When will your advertising blitz, if you will, announcement begin?
We will start ramping that up here soon because we want to get ahead and get leads for the customers, let them know that we'll be in their area, the addresses that we will be serving. So that will be ramping up here. I mean, before the end of the year, we'll start marketing, start campaigning for that and all the way through.
Sam, following up our conversation before the meeting, is our program going to be contractually based? Is it going to be month to month? What's going to be offered to the actual?
So none of that is set in stone at this point in time, but what we've thrown around and tossed around is that we will not have contracts at this point in time. That would be a month by month basis.
With an installation cost or something or other?
That's another thing that's not set in stone. I mean, a lot of times they'll put parameters on if you have a house that's a mile off the road, there could be a cost involved with that. But usually you at least set a certain footage that there is no cost. other programs look at it as you're in the area, there's no cost to connect while you're in the area. Maybe 6 months later, there is a cost just to try to encourage people to sign up sooner. There's a lot of different ways you can approach it. None of those are set in stone at this point in time of how we'll approach that, for a connection.
But because our process is pole to pole and not underground, the speed with which we're able to do this is going to be much more.
Yes, deployment of this can go very fast, as long as Make Ready stays out ahead of them and we have the material.
So if you build momentum, you have the opportunity to capitalize on momentum pretty quickly.
Yes.
Cost per foot of the fiber on the poles is way higher than the cost per foot of what would be going to the home, right? That'd be a different fiber.
Yes. Yeah, you got
So like you say the house is a mile off the road. We're not building a mile's worth of fiber to that house. It's way cheaper.
Yeah, it's a much, you're talking maybe a 6-pair strand, if that goes to the house. Compared to So yeah, it's a different type of fiber.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be as bad to say, yeah, we give you a free install when we're in the area, because
It can still be costly though, because it's still the labor it's labor that costs a lot there.
And a kind of a future, it's probably would be a future question, but assuming we get BEAD grants, we can do a lot of the network design and things as the work is being done to support our first.
Yeah, ideally, we get BEAD funds as we're in the middle of this, and we continue that.
Just continue.
Continue that design process, because this process, we call it DA1. Technically, the area that we have the grant will be broken up probably into like 10 DAs. So we'll build out one DA before the contractor can move to DA2 to confirm that they've used the supplies, they've completed it to 100%. So if we get BEAD, then now we have 100 DAs, and we just kind of continue the build out and finish our ring type thing. So yes, it would be a continued structure. As we look at contractors, we're definitely analyzing the requirements for BEAD. So hopefully we can retain the same contractors and they can meet the requirements of the BEAD grant as well as the NLC4. So we're taking that into consideration to try to keep the same people. If they're good, we want to keep them. If they're not good, we'll look for somebody else.
Is the JV agreement finalized?
We're working on that. We're stuck on one thing. Other than that, we're there.
That's been like for a while, this one thing.
No, so we met last Thursday. Was it last Thursday?
It's
Two Thursdays, a couple weeks ago, and we got through, I would suggest most everything except one piece. And I'm actually meeting Tony for lunch tomorrow to go through that piece. So, yeah, it's a very long legal document that, a few words can change the meaning. And so we finally just met with SCI and we had legal in there. And we kind of went through everything that has red lines. I feel like the contract's really there.
So if you are able to ink that deal soon, then that will maybe expedite some of this announcement process.
We're targeting right now November 1st. If we don't have the JV done, that's a week.
It's next Friday.
So we want to ink the deal right now. We are still heading to that November date. That was going to be our public announcement / employee announcement. Most likely the public announcement will be delayed a little bit because a week's not going to give us enough time, even if I'm hoping to walk away tomorrow. And I can answer some more questions and get into details later.
Does the design vary any based off of BEAD dollars?
So we did have to modify because at first we were looking at our entire territory. So we did modify the design a little bit when we went for the NLC money, because you have to build some redundancy in there. The initial plan had just the ring for redundancy. So we've had to add a few miles of backbone within this first phase. Doesn't necessarily add a lot more because you're just adding a few pairs of fiber to make that backbone. So there is little deviations as we get out there and they do field audits. We may change a route down this road instead of that road, just due to right-of-way conditions or something like that. But overall, it hasn't changed much, in my opinion.
Any other questions? Here. And for the update. The place.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, BEAD, I think the email went out, we did pre-qualify for it. So once it is available, we are one of the people that can apply for BEAD. And we're still waiting on the IBO to get back confirmation from the NTIA on the maps of what addresses will be available in BEAD. They say they'll release that probably for a few weeks, let you digest it, and then they'll probably open up the application process. It could be tomorrow, it could be December. I don't have a firm date for that release, but that's what the holdup is on BEAD at this point in time from my understanding, with working with the IBO.
All right, thanks again. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
The next item on the agenda is for your information. Ask questions about any of those items underneath for your information.
Yep.
General question, Brett, regarding, I don't see it on the check, I didn't mark it on the check register. We had a pretty significant payment to Farmers. Is that cost associated with the joint, the JV?
JB.
Okay,
Big proportion of that was JB.
and I wasn't sure if part of it was what we're going to discuss on tonight's agenda.
Yeah, part of it's that too.
Most,
What I will say though, for the JV, we did put those dollars to the ARPA money. And so I'd probably say 80% of that bill that you're looking at was for the JV and will get paid for by ARPA funds. We won't get that until the end of the year. But I sent an ARPA report out to the ARPA committee and they had no problems with what we put in there and those dollars were put in.
and the trigger to request that is what we have to have something built, what?
You have to show an invoice. You have to have a statement of work. That's basically a statement of work, invoice, and then just all the invoice details, basically. We put together a spreadsheet that they have a list of things they want to see. And so we send that report out. We sent out a couple times now. And so far, they've agreed to everything we put on there.
Anyone else have any other questions for your information? All right, not hearing any, we'll go to the next item. Let's approve or plan to approve the previous meeting minutes. It includes the monthly board meeting in September along with the executive session portion. So we'll do that in one motion. Approve both of them.
So moved.
We have a first. Okay. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. That's unanimous. All right. Next item is, Brett, you're up with the CEO update.
All right, so we're actually at the end of the year, so this is probably a good thing. So all of our projects are complete from our project list, except for a couple that I wanted to talk about. Just give you an update on what those are. So one is pole replacements. We have a plan in place to get those done by the end of the year. Actually, more than what we had signed up for. So those are in process. We still have Kent, who's working on our 3-phase, and then our guys are working on all of our single phase stuff. So at this point, we have no issues getting those done by the end of the year. Fiber project, so that project's not going to close on our list. The main commitment was to get the bead done by the end of the year. That's all dictated by when the applications come on. So I doubt that one will actually close. And then the last project is NISC work management. So that was all the Kaizen vision stuff that we did around our work order process. And so right now we're essentially waiting on NISC to implement work management. It's something we already pay for. It's actually coming in, implementing in our servers and get started using that. So it is scheduled. It was originally scheduled for mid-October. Now they're saying towards the end of October. So we should be within the next week or so of actually having them in, get the servers updated, and then we'll do training a couple weeks after that. So I think we're all ready for that to go. So
So that includes software updates.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So essentially what I'm telling you is everything on our project list that we committed to at the beginning of the year is complete. The only two that are really going to be closed here in the next couple months are pole replacements and then the storm management. So I think we're in a really, really good spot when it comes to hitting our commitments for the year. Other than that, any other questions? We met with Honda. I put that on the CEO update. That went very well. And then we also, Sam didn't mention it, but we actually went down. So I took the entire leadership down to Southeastern. We met with those folks. They've been through a fiber project now, and we gathered a ton of lessons learned. And so we're implementing some of those things as we speak. So anyways, we had that meeting. It was very, very useful. Again, we're still working on the JV agreement. And then we'll talk about the line extension and rules and regs changes in a minute. Anything from a project standpoint or anything prior to getting into the metrics that you had questions on? All right, so metrics as far as temperature. So if you look at September, we were about 2.2% lower as far as temperature than our 5-year average. Our cooling degree days were 138 compared to our 5-year average of 147. So we're just shy of it. The cooling or heating degree days were at 30 compared to 41. So I would suggest that the cooling degree days and the heating degree days were really pretty in line with what our 5-year averages have been. Which brings me to purchased energy. We used 28 million, so it's down from our 5-year average, but only down about 2.9%. Demand is where we saw a pretty significant difference. So we saw demand down just about 6%. Average. You look at the retail sales to budget, and again, we use this information as we go into, so we're starting our budget process now. And so we'll use 5-year history on these different groups to set what our sales are for the next year. But you can see residential, honestly, if you look at it, that's typically what it kind of looks like, sort of all over the place. Commercial has been consistently over. So obviously we'll want to budget a little higher for them next year. Industrials on the opposite side. So we'll want to, industrial's really been driven by two members, one significantly. I'm not going to bring up names, but they are down not because of efficiencies. They're down because they've lost some production, right? We've met with them a couple times. Their plant management has changed over a few different times. The story that we get are they're moving stuff to Mexico, but things are going to take its place. So at this point, I don't have a really good fuzzy feeling about that. So we'll probably budget them much lower for next year, and we'll probably compensate or talk about that when we do the cost of service study stuff too. Although they consistently give us the message that they're sending stuff to Mexico to free up space for some new products. So apparently haven't what they were this year. Yeah. And then transmission, I would say suggest that over the year we've been above budget. So nothing surprising other than industry in my stance. And then if you look month over month, so we did lose a little ground. We went from 1.44 to 1.15 budget, above budget, but we're getting through the tougher season here. Once we get into the winter. I'm going to jump over to our outage data. So we did have, so that red line is what we call TMED. TMED is a statistical method of signifying that you had a major event, right? And so major events get essentially taken out of our metrics, right? So as you can see, we were just shy of that. And, you know, you can take two stance. You can hope that it's over that because then it comes out of your numbers. But then I look at it as I'm glad we're not over that number because that means our system performed very well, right? So you could take it both ways. It definitely did show up. We were just shy of our TMED, which means if it would have hit that red line, it would have been classified as a major storm. So we were just shy of that. It's going to show up in lost consumer hours. As you can see, we're well over our 5-year average. So we're about 6,100, where our 5-year average was about 1,200. And then it also shows up on the number of outages. So we're at 96 compared to 41. Typically September, usually a pretty mild month. I put the 60-day in here. As you can see, we're tracking below our 5-year average. And you can tell once we get past 2020, it's going to really make this not so skewed. And then we haven't hit up safety, and we've done a lot around safety. So I thought it was important to put this in here. So our crew visits, we've got one more crew visit to get to hit our goal. And then the near misses, we've done a lot of work on our safety committee to re-energize and get people thinking about safety. We actually had a couple small near misses that we've put into here. So you can see that we've had basically 15. We categorize it near misses with suggestions. So I don't know how many of those are actually near misses and how many of them are suggestions. I'd probably say it's more heavily towards suggestions. But you can see we've made 15 in a year is a good number. We want that to be high, right? We want to identify things. And then you can see we took corrective actions on 8 of those. The things that the delta between 15 and 8 is sometimes timing, and sometimes we just didn't move forward with a, so for our building, we did a building assessment. One of the ideas was your generator is vulnerable to the public, right? So you need to somehow secure it. We chose that. We thought that was a low risk compared to the cost it would take to do something there. So we chose to accept the risk there. So that's why you see a difference between 15 and 8. Any questions on metrics or anything in my arena? I would like to say though that if you look at our past projects, what we've committed to at the beginning of the year compared to where we usually end up, there's usually a lot more on this list. So not where I want to be, but it's way better in years past. So we're starting, that execution is starting to get better.
Questions for Brett? All right, we'll continue onward, Brad, with financial update.
Not a overly exciting month from a balance sheet standpoint. The only thing that rose to the 250,000 and 5% is the total current and accrued assets. And they are lower due to a drop in AR Energy sales because we come off the peak months. So that was 571,000. And then we also had an increase in cash of 130 to offset that. So that is really the only major thing on the balance sheet. We did pay long-term debt some this month, but in general, not a huge amount of activity on the balance sheet. There is some, I guess there's $137,000 utility plant put in service. So that's a decent amount too. So, but it didn't rise to the 250 and 5%. Any questions on the balance sheet? All right, next we have our statement of operations. As you can see, we're running ahead of budget. The main one I like to look at is the operating margins. We're running $630,000 ahead of our budget so far year to date. We're running it right at 1.9 million in margin there. The bulk of that is controllable expenses is under by 450. About half of that 450 will disappear by the end of the year, and about half of it will probably remain because of the job openings that occurred throughout the year and the more or less the people who've come and gone. So, and then the gross margin, we're running about 265 ahead for the year. That's been shrinking. If we keep shrinking, it'll keep. We will probably maintain a better than budget throughout the course of the year, but the amount is going to probably. And then of course, letter D is the accounting change for bad debt, which will be in there the rest of the year. Any questions on anything related to statement of operations? As I said earlier, cash was up $130,000 for the month. We ended the month with about $450,000. So. Next, we have plant. As you can see, we're moving along when it comes to projects. I know there has been a bunch of invoices come through in the last few weeks on pole replacements as well as service upgrade stuff. So I know there's a bunch of stuff that's come through that'll hit in the next month. And as Brett said, they're working on finishing pole replacements, and as they get further along, there's always a big deluge of invoices November, December when they go back through all their stuff for two. So, and as he said, also the main project is getting completed. Any questions on the plant?
Any questions at all from that? Also, this week, Johnny and Chris and I met a gentleman from PSE to start on another 4-year work plan. So we're hoping to put as many things into that as we possibly can, because the RUS money is cheapest money you can get. So their estimate, Johnny and I are going to meet Friday and try to get them everything we need from a move them along standpoint. They thought that they could maybe have that done for months in best case scenario. So that'll be something you'll probably hear more about the rest of the year. It'll definitely be, it'll be from 2025 to 2029 will be what the frame will run from. And there will probably be things in there that will not happen, but there are going to be things in there that aren't in there that will happen. That's definitely will, yeah.
So.
Good. Thanks, Matt, for the financial update. We'll go into the next item under new business. Start with you, Brett, talking about the United Fund campaign.
Yep. So we do this every year. I'll say a little bit and I'm just going to show the video. The United Fund so I do sit on the board for the United Fund. It is an agency that's unique in the fact that it allows you to give to one company and then they have a vetting process to distribute those dollars. And so if you look at it, the pamphlet here gives back, there's 16 agencies that have been given to by United Fund, and it's 21 programs. And the staggering number that I always think is, to put it in perspective, 1 out of every 5 people in Decatur County has utilized services from the United Fund. And they're not just services for, financial need, right? These are services for grieving, for mental illnesses. These are services across the board, if you're Red Cross, if your house burns down. So there's a lot of different agencies that the United Fund touches. One thing I will say, so we're wrapping up our campaign here at Decatur County. So if you do want to give, I need this by tomorrow. So I know it's last minute here, but I waited until the board meeting to do it. So I got to wrap this up. If you know you want to give, just let me know. I'll arrange how I get your checks. So I want to give you a whole lot of time to think.
So it does need to go through you as opposed to us sending it directly.
Yes, because we do a match.
Gotcha.
So corporate wise, we do a match. We have been doing that for years. So yes, if you want to give, I would suggest you can do it on your own if you want. It just
But it doesn't get
corporate
matched. Gotcha.
So if you want the corporate match, you need to get it to me
By
by
tomorrow.
tomorrow. If you want to donate, you don't want to go through us. Some people want to do that and I'm completely fine with that. Fill it out and you can send it in at any point in time, honestly. So I'm going to show you the campaign video for the
take care of babies too. It's
Right, thank you. Don't forget tomorrow. Let Brett know if you want a company match. If not, so think about it, send it later.
Thanks for the advance notice.
Yep.
I want you to sleep on it.
Exactly. The pressure.
Sleep on it.
He's still
About that.
right now.
It's an impulse. Impulse.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Right on the heels of watching the video. Do it now.
Just want to fill it out.
Video's over.
Out.
Oh,
We can read it complete it before the video's over.
I got one completed over here that's got a signature on it, so I'm just gonna increase the amount.
Yeah, fill it in.
So the next thing we were going to go over was some policy reviews. And Steve and I had at IEC, they talk a lot about some of the videos that are out there that NRECA, so our federal agencies put together. They're really short videos. So we're going to be talking about line extensions and the rules and regs. So Steve and I thought it'd be appropriate to actually show you guys this video. So I think it's like 6 minutes. All right. So with that said, I'll go through the recommended changes here. So in general, just to cap off kind of what we're asking for here. You know, we move from having very long-term employees with a lot of tribal knowledge and kind of how we do these line extension policies. And so if you think about who's doing that back there now, right? They're all new employees. So now is the right time to make sure that it's very clear in our policies, our rules and regs as to how we interpret or how we carry out these line extensions. So for the most part, there really isn't no change. There isn't any changes to our general practice, right? In other words, the members are not going to see any differences for most of this. It's just us making clarifications so that our newer folks know exactly what we mean. They can look at the rules and regs and know exactly how to interpret those and use those in real life. And so the only change that I would suggest is, and I'm going to go through them all just because I think it'd be easier. The major change here is so today, if a new house is going up, a member's going to come in, right? We're going to go out, we're going to estimate it. And essentially what we do is we say, okay, it's a $8,000 project, right? We give them a blanket $1,600 credit. So they're going to pay the difference between whatever the estimate is minus that $1,600 bucks. And we know that's low from the last cost of service study, but we didn't change it. And so so that $1,600, it doesn't matter if you own a 5,000 square foot house, which we know is going to get more revenue credit, right? Or a 500 square foot apartment. It doesn't matter. It's all $1,600. So you do have some cross subsidies within that. So the change we're proposing takes care of that, but it also, and probably the bigger part of why this even got brought up is we're trying to standardize exactly how we calculate doesn't matter what class you're in, as long as you're not over the 750, we're trying to standardize exactly. And we have actually, and I can show them here in a minute if you would like to see them, calculators built so that it's very easy to estimate what their revenue credit would be based upon characteristics of the load. And I can show you that. So for single phase, what we're suggesting is the calculator, and I can bring it up if you guys want to see it. You put in the square footage of the home. We know from national averages what a per square foot of home uses by KWH. And it estimates that it puts the amount of KWH, the service fee, it adds those together, and then 2.5 times, which is what we follow for our line extensions, right? That comes up with what the revenue credit is. So really in general, that's the only changes. We're going from $1,600 to, we're going to calculate it based upon square footage. What I will tell you, Jason asked the question, I think is this kind of best practice in the field. All the co-ops around us have been using this for years, right? Some of them get a little bit deeper in, there's a difference in, is it all electric? Is it gas? And we felt like the differences in usage when it comes to that and the difficulty that it brings into the staking engineer, that it wasn't value added. We felt like the biggest thing is there's a huge correlation to how big your house is compared to what your usage is going to end up being. So that's what we kind of landed on. And I can show you guys the calculator and show you what it will be, but roughly for an average home in our area is about 2,000 square foot. So if you do the math, it's about $1,776 of revenue credit. So it's going to go from 1,600 to 1,700 on the average, right? And it'll go down and up according to whatever size the house is.
Okay.
That's just living space. You have outbuildings that are heated, like, are you getting down into weeds and all that kind of stuff?
No, we would just say, we would get into GIS or plans from an electrician. And typically these questions are going to be asked of like the electrician that's doing the job, right? What's the square footage you're planning on here?
That's the only factor entered into is the square footage.
That's it. And then you guys want to see the actual, because it may make.
Are there other single phase line extensions that you would have that would not fall in this category?
There's a bunch.
So how are those handled?
So for let's just say a barn.
Yeah.
It's not a permanent dwelling. You're going to put 0 in there, right? And it's going to that's what we do today. We basically give them the $37 per month. So you take 37 times 12 times 2.5. And that's what we do today. I'll show you the calculator.
Where did this template come from, Brett? Is this,
Actually, I can't take a whole lot of credit for it because we stole it from Bartholomew.
well, I was hoping that you were going to tell me that it was a.
We made it look prettier.
It's 1,110 instead of 69.
And I will give Johnny's the one that's, again, we've got a lot of new employees. Tribal knowledge doesn't work. We don't want to change a lot of practices, but we're trying to standardize and clarify all of our procedures so that it's very, very clear in here. Here it is. So this is the one for single phase, and it's going to be really hard to see, isn't it? So essentially, we know what this comes from our cost of service study. So every time we change our cost of service study, this number is going to get put in there. Anytime we change rates, we got to put that number in there. Anytime we do the fixed charge, we're going to put that number. It takes those numbers that change not very often, right? And then you're going to put the square footage of the house in here. So the only thing that staking person has to do is go in here, put the square foot of the house, and it's going to automatically calculate. And like I told you, so 2,000 square foot house is going to get about a 1775 credit. Now, the caveat to that is, and especially when you get into commercial accounts, the ideal situation is we have a similar account, and this is how it's been here forever. Someone's building a hotel, and we have a hotel on our system that's very similar in size, very similar in what the load profile is going to look like. We will actually go into the billing system, grab their usage data, and throw that into here instead of trying to estimate. Same thing with here. If we know exactly what that usage of that house is going to be, and we're confident in that, ideally, you're going to put that information in here. That probably comes into small commercial, medium commercial, and large commercial more than it does residential, but I will put that caveat in there. So again, if you have similar, the usage or what we put in there is use actuals of similar load that can be defined or estimated is a guarantee, right? So we know what it's going to be. Otherwise, this is what we'll go with. So for your instance, where it's a barn, Jason, you put a 0 in here, calculates the 110.
So the average house is 2,000 square feet. And you're saying that their average usage is only 800?
Yeah, that looks low.
I thought our average was like about 12.
The average house in United States is 2,000.
Oh,
The average usage is 0.4 kWh per square foot. So these are all built on.
so do you think that if our single phase folks are, but you've got other people than just full-time residents?
I would suggest that these could be off a little bit, but when it comes to the dollar amount, it's a school.
Well, I was just thinking if it was 1,200, that's only 2/3 of the amount. You know, if it was 1,200 a month, the average, that revenue credit's going to be a lot higher.
Yeah. I would suggest the reason ours is 1,200 is because we have general services in those. If you actually looked at our houses, I bet you'd be close to 900.
Okay.
There are certain accounts, and that's what we're looking at in the cost of service study, right? Is to see the differences. But I will tell you, 1,200 kWh per month, comparing us to other co-ops is pretty high. And I think my opinion is because we don't separate general services. So it's going to drive that number up. So I would rather go with kind of national average numbers because I feel like it's probably going to be a hell of a lot closer than, and then these are the exact same numbers Bartholomew uses, the exact same numbers Rush Shelby uses.
So if we did develop a general service, single phase class and rate, then the line extension calculation would be different for that. And then this one would only be where you're doing that now.
Yeah.
You just don't have it. It's just not defined.
Correct. I can go through all these red lines if you want to, but honestly, that's really the only change in I call it change in practice, right? So it's material changes. Everything else is, we're doing the same thing. We're just documenting it clear.
The only other problem is people understanding that this is the policy and how it operates. How much did you have to pay, Brian? Well, I had to pay 1,100. Well, I had to pay 2,000. That's going to be an issue.
It always is, right? There's no way around that.
I mean, as much problem and controversy as we've had over this line extension. I mean, I know not residential so much, but we've had a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunication and a lot of drama over line extension.
Does the flat rate make more sense?
I kind of almost hate to do this because I feel like it's going to cause a similar problem with this where there isn't one. Because of just what I just said.
I would argue that it's so this change was requested by a staking engineer today that has a very, very hard time explaining why $1,600 is the right number to a member. So it gets brought up all the time. Why is it 16? That's hard to explain because now you're talking about zero intercepts.
Telling us that's an average person.
Yeah.
Now it's only 11.
What do you mean?
It's only 1,100. Or no, that was for zero.
No, it's
This one was 17.
We're gonna get more.
And wouldn't this be more fair and equitable?
I agree.
No, it's hard to.
I agree it's fair and equitable, but communication wise,
Yeah.
the flat rate makes more
It's
sense,
hard to.
It's a flat rate. It's very, very hard to explain.
but it's a policy and it's a flat rate.
But where'd you come
But
up?
where'd you come up with the flat rate?
Yeah, I get that.
Because it's been a policy since how long?
They don't care about that.
That's the way we always do
The
it.
neighbor down the road that did it 5 years ago, his was 1,600 too. Versus 2.5% of, I agree with it. I just think communication wise, a flat rate going off what Jason has discussed and what we've had to deal with.
And what I'm telling you is in practice, I could bring in the staking engineer. He's saying it's way harder to explain the 1,600. He's had it brought up to him a lot in the last year or in the last 6 months. And I could bring him in and you guys could talk to him. He's the one they're the one that's suggesting to do this because this is simple. This is what your usage is going to be based upon. This is going to hit accuracy way closer than a 1,600. Where's the $1,600 come from?
But the new employee who proposed this has not heard everything for the last 6 or 7 years either from members. I agree with it. I think it's fair.
And I
think it's fair. I think it makes sense, but I think on the other side of communication wise,
we have
the 1,600 would be easier.
been able to communicate that well in the past. Now, maybe with the right training
Good, yeah.
in the right deal, maybe it will be communicated in a way that people will understand and they won't complain to their.
So the issues that you're talking about though, and the issues that the letters are wrote on, the complaint is, why do I have to pay anything? The complaint is never, you're coming up with this and I'm coming up with this.
Not necessarily.
But there were
Not
some that were
necessarily.
changed.
Because
So since we're on the 1,600, how long has it been 1,600?
a long time,
Like, I would argue that it's probably not enough, right?
it's not. We know it's not because the last cost of service study has said it wasn't.
Well, it's not too far off based on that.
But I think this one, in my opinion, if I was going to explain something, it's a lot easier to go through and say, these are, I mean, you can Google these and come up with these same numbers, right? This is based upon, we know that if you're a smaller home, you're not going to use as much electricity as a large home. So you're subsidizing by using 1,600. And this is based upon actual, rather than, well, where do you get the $1,600 for? Well, it comes from a cost of service study guide. Okay.
I don't dispute anything that you're saying.
I agree with it. I'm just saying communication wise, 1,600 makes more sense than the person down the road.
Communication is going to be king. And what I've seen here lately,
16.
and one thing that Johnny's really pushing is, and I think this is going to go a long way. We are starting now to do options, right? I think our traditional indicator is we come out, we understand what the member wants, and we say, here's what it is. Right? We hand them the paper, we say, here's your. What we're doing now is we're coming up with 2 or 3 options and saying, hey, here's what it is underground, here's what it is overhead, here's if we move the line over here. I haven't seen one come across my desk in the last 3 months that hasn't given more than one option. I think that creates conversation where people start to ask questions, because nobody, typically in our industry, I mean, how many times does somebody do a line extension in their life? Maybe once, right? No one's used to what questions do you even ask when you're doing a line extension? And I think something like this, the other reason Johnny's wanting to do this is because it's going to force us to have these conversations, right? And so communication is king. I completely agree. I think the more communication we can do, the better. The more people are going to ask questions, which is what we want. And so again, if the communication screwed up, none of this
What
matters.
if the member says, well, I'm pretty much going to use gas for everything else, so that average is not what my average is going to be.
They
I can prove that.
They could say the same thing with $1,600.
I know, but going forward, the flat rate of 1,600, whether you have gas or not, you're not taking that into accountability on that, right?
We could, we could.
Be the same.
I mean, I think it's way more complicated than a flat rate of 1,600.
We took the gas and fully electric, because then it gets into like, not everybody is full electric, right? Sometimes you'll have a gas stove or a gas dryer, but you won't have everything else electric. So it's not like, because some folks, co-ops do it by, you're either all electric or you're not, right? And that's kind of confusing because a lot of people have a mix. So we tried to keep it simple, but yet, and we could, if we do separate, we could actually build this based upon our data. I just think right now it's
Like heat pumps and geo. I guess you would argue that you're getting a rebate. Are we still doing that?
Yeah.
Getting a rebate for that if you put that in, so. Would we get more?
Average, the 800, that's probably taking all those things into account, right? You're averaging,
absolutely.
I'd say, yeah, it's an average, I'm sure.
All 800.
so
No. It's just, it's trying to do averages. Yeah.
It's gotta be averages.
and say if you go off an average, it's going to take the confusion out of dirt. Gas, water heater, I got this.
It confuses
It's
it.
going to be too much.
Yeah. I get it, man. It's a fine line of trying to be fair, but yet not so dang complicated that our own guys can't even do it or calculate it right. And so and we went back and forth. I mean, originally we thought about adding in, because Rush Shelby had a template. They don't use it anymore, but they had a template similar to this where you could click like certain things or gas, certain things are like, but then it's like the capacity factor and the efficiency factors nowadays of electricity or electric utilities and that are so different that that kind of matters, right? So whether you use national averages or you plug in numbers of similar homes, you're talking about a difference of not much.
Well, in this case, we're talking about a difference of $176, $177 on the revenue credit.
Right.
But it all settles up anyway, right?
No, we don't settle up any of the single phase stuff. Never have.
Usually you
But-
use 16 as the bottom, and then you calculate the others, it goes up.
You're not doing.
You mean it's minimum 16? You know, like, so.
They're gonna have varying amounts, but it doesn't address the
Yeah.
issue of varying amount. I mean, what I heard is the varying amount is the issue. So I think what Carl's suggesting has merit, but it's still a varying amounts. It's gonna be different for.
That'd be more correlated to the size or the number of square feet of that. There's two.
Oh, I think this makes much more sense. This is explained, I think, based on
Communications, definitely key.
sitting here the last 5.5 years.
And again, all this other stuff,
So do you want to go over the other stuff or is it?
I put comments in there, but honestly, there's no material differences there. This is the major change.
How far ahead would Crystal's team need to know if you, like, say, implemented this 1/1/25? How far ahead would they need to know for their billing?
It won't have anything to do with billing. We're good. We could dip into it anytime.
So if we did this effective 1/1/25, we could even pause this and think about it for next month.
Absolutely.
I think we will
Absolutely.
think about it.
I don't, this isn't like, what, we gotta do this right now.
I do think 1/1/25 would, I mean, a cutoff date would be,
That's not a bad idea.
we could make it effective 1/1/25, then everybody prior to 1/1/25 was 1,600 flat rate. Starting 1/1/25 was a 2.5 rate versus saying, well, we adopted this on October 23rd.
Yeah.
No, I 100%.
That's a good idea.
I mean, this makes total sense. You know, if someone has a 5,000 square foot home versus 20, I mean, it makes total sense. But I think if we could cut that deadline as a 1/1/25 start date and give us a month to think about it, just kind of,
Well, I definitely think this is a November.
I actually like the idea at the beginning.
I think we should table,
Yeah, and
motion to table it for next month.
yeah, I think we'll wait to vote on it then, if everyone's good with that.
Gives people time to.
Yeah, and I would definitely suggest if we do table it, that's a really good idea because then it's a clear cut starting in 25.
Effective, yeah, 1/1/25.
But you could even advance publicize it if you needed to in order to enhance that communication.
I'll be honest. Most people have no idea that they don't even look. I mean, they get the invoice and they pay it and we move on.
Well,
That's 99% of the.
I guess that's,
I mean, they're
One person.
That's right. You're thinking exactly what I'm thinking.
very rarely do.
Okay, so that's going to go to November.
Let me know if there's anything else you guys would like
Okay.
to see. I mean, I'm not against changes however we want. We thought this was a good, like, not too complicated, makes sense. I think they can explain it.
That's what's.
You show us this without the red lines in it, like what the final,
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused by some of how this is worded.
I think okay, so.
Yeah, I'll attach next month the actual clean version too. But the clean version's really gonna screw you up because we switched the order of things. So for instance, where it talks about the facility credits on 5, facility credits are valid for all these things. So we moved it down to the bottom, like down to the clean version is gonna be really tough for you to follow. Just because we moved the order.
That's gonna be the last number then. the
Yes.
facilities.
I tried to make this as clean as possible so you guys, in other words, if you look at number 5, nothing changed there other than I moved it from 5 to 8. So if I pull a red line out of the system, it's going to show all that red line, even though we didn't change anything. The clean version, it's going to have it moved. That's why I didn't put it in here, but we'll throw it in for next month. And then if there's anything else you guys would like to see, if you guys want me to bring in Mark, I could bring in Mark. He can go over some of the,
That makes, this seems like a fair
You
rate.
did mention earlier, most of what they green. These do the.
everyone's using this.
New credit, so I don't know if that's.
Yeah, what if you did a huge remodel or addition, or somebody gonna be like, hey, I gotta put a bigger service in for my house because I'm adding on,
That follows a different, it's not a new.
New. It's for new, right?
This is new
New
residential service. It's an extension of our primary, so it's not even, let's say you're building a house next to your new meter. So if you're building a house next to the road that has 3-phase on that road and all we're doing is hanging a transformer and putting secondary down to your house, you're charged nothing for that because there's no primary line being extended, right? This is only for, I'm building, your house would be a great example, right? That's primary line. It goes all the way back to your house. We can't put a transformer at the road because it's too much of a drop as far as voltage drop. We had to extend primary line so far back. Otherwise, if your house was right up to the road, there'd be no cost because we don't have to run any line. It's just, it's a service drop. That's,
And I did say that correctly. This is for new residential only.
yeah, this doesn't apply to, we're not doing anything different than we do. Actually, we're making this the same as we do for small, medium and large, where we're actually calculating the revenue credit. And that's the other reason they really want this is because it standardizes how we do it. So that, because that's the other comment is
One
what,
thing they made is the comment that was made, it just makes everything the same.
yes. So now when a member is looking at how we do commercial compared to how we do single phase, number one question you're going to get is where $1,600 come from? That's hard to explain, right? Number two is why is this different than any of the other ones? Now we're standardizing all of it. So
You're standardizing the process.
yeah, no matter what class you're in. Let me know if you guys need anything else or you want to see anything else. I will attach the clean version next month.
Okay, we'll plan on, looking at it closer to next month or not. Okay. Anything else, Loretta?
Yep.
All right, next item. Capital credit retirement.
Yeah, so you can follow the master, but essentially what we did is you do the calculation of the, so we're staying on a 30-year. That's what our financial plan says. So you basically take what's unretired, you divide it by 30. That comes out to be for REMC 623,713. We took the last lowest year, which is 1997. I think it was all of that. And then the delta of that is 1998, which was the year I graduated. 346,080.
Goodness.
Easy. So that, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? And then for Hoosier, 346,512 is the normal, our normal rotation, right, or cycle, retirement from Hoosier. So again, we went to the latest years, used it up in 1993, 1994. And then we did not put the special retirement in here because it's later in our board meeting,
Okay.
which includes part of the financing plan for the meters. I think it's as simple as that. So essentially this keeps us on a 30-year. It gives back exactly what we get from Hoosier, and it's using the last, because these are normal retirements, it's the oldest years.
Sure.
It's quite a bit more than 24. Is that correct?
Do you remember what we did in 24? I can pull it up.
Well, we did we gave everything back.
Yeah.
If you look at the master, you can see the bar chart there, how big it was.
What do you mean in total with Hoosier, Jason?
So I guess I'm confused a little bit about the bar chart since you brought that up.
Okay.
How are we more than we were last year? Am I reading that right?
Now, I wish there was a year on each one of these bars because,
Well, yeah, oh, that says 21. I thought that said 23.
No,
so it's
21, 22, 23, 24 is not on here.
yeah.
Oh,
Because we haven't retired, you guys haven't.
yeah. Retirements, they already went out.
Yeah, I guess it did, didn't it?
So
I can pull, do you want the amounts from last year? I mean, I've got the resolution.
necessary.
It was done in
Last year.
So one reason that when you add in 23's unretired amount, you divide, that does increase the number. Since last year had decent.
last year we gave 575, 933. But again, all we're doing is taking all the unretired, dividing it by 30.
We gave 575 plus 346 times 2.
Yes.
So it will be a little bit more. Well, not it won't be. Okay.
But we did it similar last year as far as the years too.
Yeah.
This was the amount last year.
on a yearly basis. 90. Think ahead. Less than 25. Less than 25 because of the 346. If you use that towards the meter. Right. That's what you're thinking. Yeah, it'll be less than last year, yeah. It's still gonna be a very big number. I mean, you add them both together, you're almost $1 million.
Yeah. So do you need action on
We
the?
need that, yeah, a motion to approve the resolutions for both. Kidder County case. So we can do that.
So moved.
First
I'll second.
and a second. To approve both the resolutions, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed the same. So we're good. All right, talking about the RF meter replacement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can do that.
You can do that if you want.
Just check knowledge.
It's all you, Matt.
I may change my plan too, as to how fast the work plan gets done too.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna put the meters in the office person, so our US money is cheaper at CFC.
Oh, okay.
They're gonna let you do that.
In talking to them, you have like a year look back, so Chris was, when we were sitting there talking, if we get it in there, get it done before we can still take that money in, so.
It's not approval anyway. It's
No, this is
just what,
Yeah. That's plan A now, this might be plan B.
that's fair.
In general, cost 2.3 million. I looked at borrowing 1.5 million from CFC in 30 years. I got the rate sheet the other day. 30-year money is 6.35 versus 15-year money is 6.15. There's just not enough difference there to justify giving them back their money that much faster. I mean, if inflation will chew up that difference in rate. So, and that gets us to where if we retain the Hoosier special retirement, as we talked about, that leaves us with short-term borrowing, and then once we sell back the meters and transformers, we're covered. So
This is plan B. What's plan A?
plan A is to borrow 1.5 million from our US at 4.3%.
But that's gotta be done. We gotta get approval on the work plan,
We're working on that.
which we're working on.
What was the percentage?
It's about 2% less from our US money. It's a big difference.
We're only selling back the meters that we have in stock, like the new meters here, or we can sell back the ones that.
Let's sell back everything.
But we, fine.
Yeah, once
They're only giving you $48,000.
Yeah, they're not gonna give us.
Yeah, I didn't think that the ones we're pulling from the homes, when we're switching them out, would be worth anything at all, but they want those too, huh?
Yeah, they'll give us 50 grand.
Harrisburg, the other systems, they're
Yeah.
still using them or so, he said.
But we can't really sell them until the RF's all up.
Yeah.
We'll get your new meter next meeting, but I want this one.
So I looked at the 30 years I do get the idea if you want to match your assets and your liabilities in general, but I guess I looked at it as we've paid cash for so many 50-year assets that I feel like in general, it makes more sense to look at any borrowing on the basis of what's the best deal for our money over the long haul. I guess my opinion is your effective interest rate being only 0.2% difference over 15 years difference, that inflation will chew up. The effective interest rate is actually cheaper to borrow long term.
So I guess what we're telling you is this is what we were gonna do. And it changed this morning when we met with, the folks that are gonna be doing our work plan. So obviously, if we can get it into the work plan and get it in time, that's gonna be the way to go.
Yeah, that was,
But there's a lot of hurdles.
that was the takeaway from 5 o'clock last night. And I thought about it, dawned on me when I was
Yeah, no, good point.
sitting here, that, hey, that'll be a better deal. We didn't talk about that yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts? Jason?
They're not gonna be put in.
It's gonna take 18 months to get this done, so I think we should make it.
And that would start when?
The what?
They'll start in 18 months. Is that what you're saying?
So they start getting meters in.
Meters will be like 18 months, right, until they get it.
Lead time?
No.
But I'm
He's saying,
when they start,
They start in like 9 months, but they wouldn't be done for like 18 months.
18 months. It's take 9 months to get it completed
Starting.
once they start.
Yeah.
And we didn't, because there was some timing of payments
Yes.
there that we can kind of string it out a little bit.
Yeah. So if we could get the work plan done in 4 to 5 months, I think 4 is probably ambitious, but
yeah, but we may even at that time then say, hey, let's just go pull some short term because we're only off
Yeah.
a month or two.
yeah.
that's a
For
possibility.
2%, it's gonna be worth it.
Right.
Plus we get the work plan money all lined up, you know.
We okay? Any questions? All right, thanks, Matt. Let us know what transpires. So the next item on our agenda has to do with governance member letters. And the board has had several letters that we have received starting later this year, February the 23rd, through one at our last meeting date, which was on September the 25th. And because of having a number of letters that we've received and a number of responses that have been generated, Brett has spent some time creating a timeline and including that information in our board packet. And so I wanted the board to look at this and ask any questions that you have seen based upon not only the letters that have been written, but the responses that have been given. And then the response that legal has recently created for us from the last letter that was given. And I know I said a lot. I'm just going to caution everybody. We probably don't want to mention a specific member's name, but you can, when you want to bring something up at all, tell us what letter you're looking at and what your general question is. And again, we want to go ahead though, and throughout all this, after we discuss it, we'll probably want to make sure we're in agreement that the legal draft response is adequate for the reply to the letter of September 25th.
I reviewed both legal responses and I think they're adequate. I read both of them. I think
You did say that again?
as what we communicated as a board together, that's kind of what we basically said. I remember Dale was one that kind of led on that conversation saying, just turn it over to Erin. She's the attorney. I think both of her responses were adequate.
Okay.
And forceful. And
Yeah.
I mean, on the first one, I want to say, dear Mr. So-and-so, and delete everything except for the last bolded paragraph, the last bolded sentence. I say that tongue in cheek, but I think the gist of the letter is, and thank you, Sue, that's exactly what I hoped. I want it to be pointed. I want it to be.
I did have a question. I went back to review and I couldn't find them all, but as far as the carbon copy CCs, I felt like there was a couple other names that were on a signature that were not represented on that.
Are you addressing a specific letter? Which letter? Dated, what was the date of that letter?
No, the first one, with draft response, the very last page with who are they going to be copied to? I thought we were missing a couple names that were on, I think. And then one, I just want to make sure that's up for, I mean, she's the attorney, but I want to make sure that everyone that signed any of those prior letters were included on that.
Yeah, I think all she did, you guys can add whoever, I think the only thing. She was responding to the folks that were on the last
The
letter,
25th.
25th.
Yeah, let me verify that.
Because you kind of like the solar ones, right? So they started with a group of 18. By the time it got to the end, there were only 5 people.
Yeah,
But that's kind of,
Okay, that makes sense then.
that's what it was. I just checked it. So there were 5 that signed it on the 25th. And that's who,
Okay.
decided to respond to. Would you like to include additional?
No, that makes sense. I just off of memory, I remember there's a few other names that were on other letters. That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
In addition, I just wanted to bring up too, the tab associated with this includes kind of the board due diligence. And as you read through that, and of course, those aren't the responses, the specific responses that legal gave, but it does give you an idea of
This is kind of what happened here
exactly.
in response to some of these issues as they were, right? Is that right?
so the one that says the board due diligence red lines, that was me and Aaron sitting down kind of, and Steve actually gave input on this too, trying to bounce back and forth, kind of like if you were to respond verbatim, like to some of this stuff, like what was done, what was said, how would you respond to that? So we try to keep it factual, right? Rather than putting our opinions in there. And actually, Steve had spoken to Aaron on some of this stuff. Some of this came, Steve, me, or Aaron.
But to keep it in perspective, I mean, we asked legal to go ahead and respond to it, not necessarily with what we had created. That makes sense. So what I think what I heard the board say is, you think the response is adequate to go forward with. Was there anything else in any of those previous letters that need to include in that final response? And maybe to your point, Suzanne, we don't need to, because those other folks didn't necessarily sign that, right? So. Excuse me. So I know we did it. I think in the last response that we had, we actually approved it. You guys feel that we need to do that?
Steve, I'd be interested if there's any concern or reservations about the letters going out, I'd be interested in hearing that.
Hearing that.
Yeah, I mean, some have spoken, not everyone has spoken. I'm all in favor. And
Okay.
if we need a motion, I'm ready to make that motion.
Okay, well, no, I think that's a good approach.
I'm glad that we're discussing it in open session. I'm glad that you put this timeline together because quite frankly, I was getting lost.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to have this to reference and look at. I think the response, the attorney is what we collectively agreed that
Okay.
should include, and I support the letter.
Okay. How about you, Brian?
I thought we already sent it.
Oh, Had been said.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Good with going forward with the response. Suzanne, I think you spoke and you're good with it. How about you, Carl?
I'm good.
You're good with the response? Steve?
Yeah, I'm good with the response. I think feel like it's
You
run
wanna-
up together as a board, say and do.
All right, so, yeah, let's go ahead and approve or make a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That was the same. So we're going to go forward with that. So I think that takes care of, the governance. I'll generalize them as governance letters. But we talked about line extensions tonight. And we've had a litany of letters regarding those as well. So we kind of did the same thing as we did, other than there won't be any additional responses. Just wanted to kind of put it together in a format, the timeline, and then again, the board due diligence, red lines. And the board response that was given on September 18th, I think it was. So we can talk through it. I know we already sent the letter, but we have not heard back from anyone. So. Again, I wanted to bring it up in open session as well. So any comments regarding the service charges / line extensions, what have you?
This response was sent.
It was, yes.
That's when you were thinking of Brian.
Yeah, well, I thought we already approved to send the other. people
That was back on,
to the-
well, we kind of, what we said then is we were going to allow legal to go ahead and.
Yeah, that's what I just assumed. Yeah, I just assumed. My fault. Assuming.
Yeah, but this one was sent on 18th of September.
Seeing that's a month removed, has there been any? Nothing?
I don't know that anybody's heard of anything. No. So,
Yeah, because I was pleasantly surprised, but I didn't see a letter in my inbox tonight when I walked in.
So,
what was that, Jason?
I'm backtracking, I guess. The previous letter that we approved to send that Aaron drafted, will it also go to all these legal people that are enlisted?
That was our plan.
Okay. Sorry, that's a backtrack.
We well done, right? All right, any additional comments, discussion, questions related to service charges and / line extension number letters? Know what's going out? We haven't heard anything. I'm not too sure we will. But I believe because if I'm not mistaken, they were sent certified. They should have all have received them. So. We good? Okay. Which leads us into the next section of affiliated organizations. Right?
January.
February. You have to remind me again in November, though. How about you, Jason?
Yeah, the big news from Hoosier is we were awarded $677 million in grant money from the New Era deal from the government. $580 million for the Palisades nuclear project, $67 million for a solar, a locomotive solar, what we're calling locomotive solar, and another $30 million for another solar project. It has been authorized by the USDA, which means that it will be very difficult if the administration changes to undo this. So it's a go. So that's a big deal. That will equal about $4 a megawatt over the next 20 years. That will not be a tracker. That will be incorporated into base rates. So, but that is paid out over 20 years. So it's $4 a megawatt annually,
Jason,
677 million.
But you're saying there is an ever so slight chance that the new administration could, can they make, no.
And the rules seem to be pretty fluid. So there's still some hurdles that have to be, but they announced it, like they awarded it, we're getting it. So, that was good. They did sign a new contract, a 5-year contract with IBW. It's about a 4.4% increase annually for that, for the union. And then we did go and tour Palisades, the nuclear facility. We went there on the 8th of October, and on the 7th of October, we went to St. Joe's, the gas plant that we bought with Wabash. The gas plant is basically the same output as the nuclear facility, but there's like 4 people that work there, literally. It's really clean. It's like there's nothing there, like. And we went to the nuclear place, and there are like 400 people that run that. And we were escorted with a security guard with an automatic weapon. We were only allowed to go in groups of 5. Your lead had to have eye contact with you at all times. Sniper towers. I mean, it was like, it was for real. Like, they don't mess around. So we went in, we did get to go into the control room because the nuclear facility still has the spent fuel on site. So it's still, you know, and that is in perpetuity, like that will be there until the end of time. So although they're not generating power right now, I mean, they still have to manage the facility, right? And we went in the control room, and they made us take our hard hats off and leave them in the hallway, because they said if your hat falls off and you bump a lever or whatever it could be. So they really let us all in this room with all these buttons and levers everywhere. And I'm like, oh God, he did it, you know. But it was a lot of analog equipment too. This facility was built in the 80s, so it's and they're putting everything back exactly like it was, because analog stuff can't be hacked. So it was a completely different world than the gas plant. It was crazy.
Jason, how big physically is the plant? I mean, the campus, they got spent fuel rods. I mean,
Yeah, I think there's like actually like 150 acres or so at this facility, like the footprint, the perimeters and all that. But the actual footprint of the facility itself is pretty small. I would say, what, 20 acres maybe?
That.
The biggest part is the cooling towers. The cooling towers are huge, like they're really big. But the spent fuel rods are in like these concrete containers, like on these pads outside.
it was like a football field or something, wasn't it? What they said at Hoosier Energy back in April.
These are just six of
All of the spent fuel for all of the nuclear power generation, since we've been doing power generation by nuclear, would all fit like in a football field in the world. It's not, it doesn't take up that much space, but it has to be monitored.
Then the second question is, if we turn the lights out, will you glow?
No, and the reason I know that is because before you are allowed to leave that facility, you have to go through a full body radiation scan. So they told everyone before we went in, if you've had any kind of medical procedure that had a dye, you can't go in because they won't be able to let you leave. So we, like some of the work, you know, because there literally were what, 300-400 people there working on site that day. I mean, there were people everywhere. They're trying to get this. And there were some problems. They found some tubes and stuff that had to be re-sleeved. They weren't planning on. But the guy that's in charge of it I asked him specifically if he was still going to be on time. And he said, yes, they're going to do whatever they have to do to make sure they're on. And there were tons of people working in that place, but everybody does that every day they leave. Like you have to like strip down like you're going through airport security to get in. And when you leave, you go through that radiation body scan thing, and if you set it off, you're not going home. I don't know what they do with you, but you're not going home.
Get to spend the night there.
So anyway, it was pretty impressive.
Pictures, right?
No. I asked him, we had a board meeting before the thing, and I asked if, I said, I'm just asking for a friend, are you allowed to take pictures? And they're like, yeah, I probably meant just be like, take your phone out. So I didn't see anything.
They didn't
with
make
your
you
phone out.
turn your phone in?
No, we were able to take them with us.
No, I think you said Brett wants to know if he can. take Jason with a nuclear.
He wanted to take a selfie with the uranium. But anyway, that's the big deal is the grant money. That's going to be really big. So that's $4, and the gas plant that we bought, they say will lower our wholesale power cost by another $2. So $6 they're expecting over the next 20 years. So it's good. The gas plant has lots of options. It runs like full boards. There's a lot of demand up there. It can go into PJM. They're going to try and build another line so they can get into zone 7 of MISO or zone whatever. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity there for members with that plant for physically located. It runs, yeah, like 90% full bore, like it never hardly shuts down.
It's connected to a pipeline. It's not,
Mhm.
not trucking.
And they, he went into the gas supply and their pressures, but they're not affected so much by home heating like some of the other gas, pressure gets low because they send it to the city. So they're full board. And they get all their water to cool out of wells, out of the ground, which I thought was crazy.
Where they're at, right where they're at.
The nuclear plant obviously draws it out of Lake Michigan, but the gas plant has water wells.
How far, where are they in Michigan? How far?
Miles south of South Haven,
South Haven. So how close are they actually to the lake?
right there on.
On the lake. There are buoys out there where you can't, don't take your boat in there, like, we're gonna have a problem. Yeah.
Well, someone had asked people fly drones and stuff over this thing. He said, well, we can't give you exactly how that would be detected, but we would know that drone is on its way in our area before, it'd be taken care of. And they were talking about like they have radar certain places.
It's literally, it's sure it was intense, but anyway, that's my report.
Don't make any sudden moves.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And Brett, you were there as well, right?
Mhm.
All right, I see, we did have was involved in a budget meeting, I think it was October the 8th, and then a bi-monthly board meeting then on the 16th of October. So I know I'm going to mess up this name, so Brett, you can help me with it. Michael Krakenboy.
I don't know how to say it either.
Anyway, he's the new IEC Vice President of Education and Development. Basically, Lena Morris's job. And so I'm sure some of you will certainly hear his name. You'll probably be meeting him at some point in time. And speaking of that, I want to mention the IEC annual meeting, which will be coming up in December. It's the 9th and 10th. But they are offering CCD course and a VOC course. And so I made a note. I wanted to mention, I know you all know that we can get the CCD in a 2-year time period, which is what we require in our policy. But I don't know if too many of you know that you can get your BLC requirement in 2 years as well. And I know we don't require that in our policy, but I'm going to suggest and encourage that some of us start thinking about taking some of those BLC courses because I think they're good. So speaking of that course that's held on the Sunday before the IC meeting starts, it is, I don't have the name of the course.
Under resiliency, I'm going.
Thank you. You are going to be going. And I'm going to think about going as well. So, yeah, I'm glad you wrote it down.
Resiliency, I go to IEC, I was at IEC building.
It's at the new IC building. And for those that are considering attending, the meeting on Monday and Tuesday, I think, well, I guess you'll still be housed. If you want to stay online, I think that's still probably downtown. So speaking of, I mentioned the committee meeting that I was involved with. It was approved by the IC board in our October meeting, and the proposed dues budget is 2.5% less than 2024 budget. So that's kind of a little bit, that's good news for us. Everybody here. Well, I calculated it to be 2.7 less for Decatur maybe. And then I wanted to mention John Elkins. I don't know if you guys know him. He's the safety director there at IEC, but he wanted to thank all the REMCs that participated in helping with Hurricane Helene restoration. And then I was going to piggyback Brett when he mentioned it earlier, but on behalf of the board, we certainly express our gratitude for Decatur County's involvement with their endeavors. So really, that's about all I have for the IEC meeting. Or the IC meeting, but if you do plan on going to the annual meeting, contact Jeannie, get your reservation. I'd like to see a lot of us there. Other than that, that's all I have. As far as director training or conferences, did anybody attend any within the last month? Since the last time we met? No. All right, anybody have anything else before? Sure. We are going to be going into executive session. So I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We're adjourned.